Today marks an important milestone for UNICEF Namibia with the completion of the official opening of a critical one-day workshop. This gathering aimed to validate the GRN UNICEF 2025 to 2029 country program of cooperation, a strategic blueprint poised to guide the collaborative efforts for the next 5 years. Now, over the last 2 years, UNICEF and an array of Namibian government ministries have been diligently working together to craft and refine this forward-looking program. Joining us in studio to delve deeper into the significance of today's workshop and what this means for UNICEF's ongoing efforts in Namibia is Genevieve Bouton, the Deputy Director in UNICEF's Program Group. Ms. Bouton, good afternoon and thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I understand this is your first visit to Namibia. So
yes.
Maybe just talk to us about how your experience has been thus far, and just for the viewers out there, briefly what actually brings you to Namibia and overall what the program is all about.
Well, first I want to say how passionate I was about coming here to Namibia, because I've been following the history and the very impressive strides of development that Namibia has made and the vision that has always put children's rights at the center of your efforts to develop the country. So now that our country office, as you indicated, is finalizing this program of cooperation with the government, it's a key moment to come have conversations with them, with our civil society partners, with our UN agency colleagues, and of course with the government, not only to finalize this, but also to talk about how we will take it forward together. I want to say that because Namibia has a high income status, or upper middle income country, it's a particularly challenging cooperation with us, because we want to absolutely think of what is the best way that we can bring our particular top-notch expertise in support of the efforts that the government is leading, and really trying to see how we can make sure that this next decade of growth is going to be one that profits all the children, in particular the most vulnerable. So I'm also here to learn, and I'll share the learning with many other countries over many other continents.
So briefly just take us through the process of the program itself, and at the end of the 5-year period, what are the key objectives that you're looking to actually attain at the end of that?
Great. So our guiding light, of course, is the National Development Program, the NP6, which is being finalized now, along with the Sustainable Development Goals that the whole world has agreed to pursue. And the SDGs, as we say in short, very importantly say we should leave no one behind. Correct. So for us, the purpose of designing this cooperation is finding the ways in which UNICEF can fit its support to the national priorities, where we have some expertise that we can add. In many contexts, also sectors, we will work with other UN agencies. But really the end goal is that every child, no matter where they're born, no matter their abilities, is able to fulfill their full rights. So in Namibia, as I understand now the challenges of the country, I understand that first, we're fortunate that the government is making major investments in social sectors already. It's really absolutely tremendous to see the level of financial commitment. The question is, how do we work together hand in hand with the different ministries to translate that investment into real gains for each child? And also to prepare every child, every family, to one, be able to benefit from the economic growth that is to come, so that it's fair. And secondly, if shocks are coming, whether it's a new pandemic or a climate-related shock, that they have resilience, that they are able to bounce back quickly, and we don't see the sort of losses that we saw with COVID-19, unfortunately, all over the world.
Now, you mentioned earlier about Namibia in particular being classified as an upper middle income country. That, of course, then also has 4 other countries in SADC falling under that same classification that was, of course, given by the World Bank. How does the World Bank justify this specific classification, and how is UNICEF able to deal with these specific disparities?
Yeah, I think for the World Bank, it's actually quite a mathematical thing. You know, it really has to do with averaging out the GDP per capita. They are very aware, of course, the World Bank and the United Nations, that it can hide a lot of inequalities, such as in the case of Namibia. And by the way, I shall say we're very fortunate here that the government itself is very aware of these inequalities and very focused on them. Because in certain countries, we even have to maybe convince the nation that this is a problem. Here, I don't sense that. Everybody's quite focused on the inequities. The thing is that we have to find the ways to attract different sorts of financing, because the country is not able to maybe draw on some of the existing pots of money of official development assistance in the same ways that you would if you were a lower income country. And for UNICEF also, it affects the formula of how much our executive board distributes to each country. So we have to be even smarter about every dollar we spend to really find those interventions that can really, really make the difference for the largest number of children.
Absolutely. Now, the EU has named 2024 as the year of transforming education. What is UNICEF's stance on this in particular, and how will we then collaborate to make sure that those specific programs that are coming on the ground are impactful and actually reach the intended targets?
Yes, this will be a major area of focus in our new program of cooperation, of course, and alongside the government of Namibia, both in the summit in New York, but also the recent AU summit, we've really believed in placing the emphasis on this foundational learning. Because it's very important that every child not only attends school, which maybe has been the focus in the past,
Correct.
but learns, and learns the basic writing, reading, and math skills. As you know, once you can read and write, the whole world opens to you.
Absolutely.
So we want every child in Namibia to have that opportunity. In order to do that, the kinds of interventions that we will be looking at is, of course, accompanying and supporting our teachers. They take a lot of burden. They have a lot of challenges. Secondly, we need to go find the children who may have fallen through the cracks and bring them back into the system, whether it's a formal or an informal. Thirdly, we have to make sure every child from now on enters this education system and is ready for it. And a key investment there is early childhood education. If you wait until grade 1 to bring a child into a learning environment, it's a bit late. They're not prepared for learning. So major investments will be made in that. And finally, inclusion. So children who have disabilities, children who live in far remote areas or in disadvantaged communities, they need to also receive special care so that they're able to cope and follow the learning as well.
So based on your assessment thus far, what two key issues should Namibia be focusing on, particularly in the upliftment of women and, of course, then children, ensuring that we are able to reach the goal of ensuring that no child is left behind?
Well, thank you. And I'm so glad you mentioned women because, of course, across the UN, we're still very much committed to investing in women and girls as major levers of still growth, right? Because participation in the labor market in the countries of SADC is still not as high as we would want for women. It starts in adolescence with adolescent girls. We're very much aware in UNICEF now that adolescence is a period of opportunity and vulnerability for adolescent girls. So we must be there for them. We must provide them with sexual reproductive health and rights support. We must make sure they get the right skills to be able to participate in the society. That would definitely be a big one for me. And then education, which we have mentioned, of course. And lastly, I would say that social protection. So there are many, many schemes that Mozambique has in order to be able to assist the most vulnerable families. But I understand from talking to government partners that there is scope to align these and make them more efficient so that we can reach more people. And so we can also use these programs not only to help them survive, but to help them lift themselves up out of poverty.
Now, briefly, just before we let you go, the one-day workshop, who are the participants and what is sort of the process in terms of what's happening at the specific workshop?
So this morning we heard opening remarks from the executive director of the National Planning Commission. She gave a very inspiring vision of what is in NP6 and what are the challenges that we should see ahead. Of course, my colleagues already had been in touch with her colleagues and colleagues from all over, all the ministries way ahead. So this is a confirmation. The UN resident coordinator was there as well. And a presentation was done to validate the thinking and make some final tweaks on the areas of where UNICEF will try to have some impact level, hand in hand with the ministries. And what I really liked was that the presentations were being done by government officials, not by UNICEF. So this is really something that has been developed hand in hand. Now we will have our budget, a part of the UNICEF central budget will come from New York. We will also work together with our office and the government to attract additional money and even financing for the government, ideally, not for UNICEF. And we will evaluate this on an ongoing basis. Year on year, one has to check whether we are progressing and maybe the strategies need to be adapted, do some learning together. So it's going to be a very dynamic process.
And we certainly wish you and your team all the best with that. Thank you so much once again for making the time to join us. And we certainly do hope that you enjoy your stay here in Namibia. And we look forward to welcoming you back as we, of course, we don't want one of those situations where programs are launched. We want to ensure that we're actually following the process throughout and at the end of the day then be able to discuss what has been achieved and what, of course, then has not been achieved. But thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. That was Genevieve Boutan, the Deputy Director Director in UNICEF's program group, talking to us about the GRN UNICEF 2025-2029 Country Program of Cooperation, a strategic blueprint poised to guide their collaborative efforts for the next 5 years.